Here is something strange about being young. In your early 20s, time feels like an ocean. It stretches out so far in every direction that you cannot see the edges. So you spend it the way someone spends money when he never bothers to check his bank balance. Advice from people older than you sounds like background static, a low hum of well-meaning noise you plan to deal with later. You think, I will figure all of that out eventually. Right now, I have bigger things going on. And then, one perfectly ordinary morning, you wake up and realize that the word later quietly turned into the word now. You blink and a decade is gone. You blink again and it has been 15 years. You finished high school what feels like a couple of seasons ago, and somehow half a lifetime of mornings has slipped through your fingers. That feeling sits heavy in your chest. And this next part is the one that really gets to me. At some point, you start noticing people around you who look tired in a way that has nothing to do with sleep, worn down, dimmed. They have given up on something, and you can almost feel it coming off them when they walk into a room. The scary part is that these are not the older folks, the uncles and aunts you always pictured as the worn-out generation. These are people your own age, the ones you sat next to in class, the ones you went to college with. On paper, they have everything: a job, a place to live, a decent paycheck, a life that runs on schedule. But the energy coming off them says they are mourning chances they let slip, that they stopped taking care of themselves, that somewhere along the line, they quietly decided the good life is for other people, and theirs is just going to drift past the window. And the one thing you know for sure, deep in your gut, is that you do not want to end up there. What makes all of this harder is one plain fact. After 30, changing course gets a lot tougher. By then, you are carrying responsibilities, a pile of old experience, a stack of fears, and a comfort zone you spent years building brick by brick. All of that turns the idea of change into something a little terrifying. So today, here on Brad Walker, I want to share some honest thoughts about what is actually worth investing in before you turn 30, so that later, you are not the one chasing a train that already left the station. And I do not mean money. This is not a video about dollars or markets or portfolios. Better than that, it is not only for the young folks just starting out. It is about where you point your time and your attention. And the earlier you start, the better. The goal is simple: to stand on your own 2 feet with confidence when you are older, to feel a kind of inner freedom, and above all, to look back one day and tell yourself, thank you for getting this right when it counted. Today, I will walk you through my own experience. What built a foundation under me, what worked, and what I would do all over again if you handed me back my 20-year-old life. So let us get into it. Before we go further, one quick thing. If this is already useful to you, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. We are on a real push to reach 1,000 subscribers here on the channel, and every single one of you moves us closer. It costs you a second, and it means the world. All right, here we go. The first thing to understand is that mistakes are not optional. They are coming, no matter which road you pick for your life. It does not matter whether your path is about saving, investing, building a business, or honestly, even if your whole goal is to party and burn through your 20s having fun. The mistakes show up there too. And here's the reframe that changes everything. That is not a malfunction. That is a normal, healthy stage of growing up. You walk a road, you stumble, you draw your conclusions, you keep walking. The most dangerous trap in your young years, and I fell into it more times than I can count, is believing that you already know everything and that you are always right. Trust me on this, you are not. Even when you are 100% certain that you are not. The most useful thing you can do for yourself is to accept that and make peace with it. Set it as your default setting. Then start buying experience. What I mean is, stop treating mistakes like disasters and start treating them like purchases. You are going to mess up. You are going to put money into something and watch it disappear. But every one of those failures turns into a lesson. It turns into knowledge you cannot get any other way. So many people freeze at the very start of the path. They are scared, and they keep waiting for some bigger, more serious moment to begin. The truth runs the other way. The sooner this happens, and the smaller the amounts of money involved, the easier everything gets down the line. Because starting anything is far harder once you have grown up, once you carry real obligations, which is exactly what age brings. Mistakes simply cost more then. They're harder to absorb emotionally. You are older, you assume you are the adult in the room, and then you get it wrong anyway. Your flexibility has shrunk, while your responsibility has ballooned. That is just the basic wiring of a human life. When you are 20, let us be honest, everything lands a little softer. In the moment, it can feel crushing, sure, but 3, 4, 5, 7 years later, you look back and think, all those problems I had at 20, all those losses, that was kindergarten. And thank goodness it all happened when it did. I ran an absurd number of these experiments across every corner of my life. On the business side alone, there was a stretch where I launched, of all things, a company that produced and sold paintings. I tried selling premium imported tea, the exclusive stuff we brought in from overseas. I started a brand of hair vitamins. I bought into a costume jewelry workshop. I opened a children's toy store. And believe it or not, I even had a startup out in California where we tried to build a business recycling used electronics. There was almost nothing I did not try my hand at. And since none of those businesses are around today, you have probably already guessed that most of those projects ended in nothing. On the surface, they were pure losses. Lost time, lost energy, a lot of lost money. Why? For two plain reasons. First, you cannot truly focus when you are spread across everything at once. Second, results in life are simply unknowable in advance. That is just statistics. Around 90 out of every 100 things you attempt are not going to work. But here is the part that matters most. And it is something I struggle to put into words, something that will be hard to picture in the moment. The sheer scale of the experience that every one of those attempts handed me, you cannot measure it. And beyond the experience and the knowledge and the stored up weight of it, there were the people, the connections, the read on my own strengths and weaknesses, which I believe is one of the most valuable things a person can ever gain. Move over to the media side of my life, and it was the same wild laboratory of trial and error. The format that finally connected with people, the one that took off, was something like my 7th or my 10th attempt. 6 or 7 completely different formats came before it, and not one of them landed. They went nowhere. And then on roughly the 7th try, it clicked. Something finally caught hold of people, and from that point, everything started to roll. So when someone watches and thinks, wow, this guy is brilliant, a natural, that is incredibly kind to hear. But honestly, I know that is not the truth. The secret, if there even is one, is this. Keep trying. That is the whole secret. Test, attempt, fail, go back to the start, and do it again, and again, and again. And here is what I have noticed. You can draw a lot of these parallels, but one of them stuck with me. The scale of a person matches the scale of the problems they can solve. And alongside that, the scale of a person matches the sheer number of attempts, mistakes, tests, and hunches they have run through in their life. This is not just my opinion floating in the air. We can look straight at the data. Research keeps showing that most entrepreneurs launched other companies before they ever found real success. And those companies failed. They simply collapsed. And precisely because of that, it all turned into knowledge, into experience, and then at some point, bang, it worked. The whole game is to not stop. Practice tells the same story. People who take more swings learn faster. They build and stock their intuition. They get better at reading risk. They adapt to change quicker, which matters more today than it ever has. So while you are young, the first thing worth investing in is yourself, your own ventures, and yes, your own mistakes. I know that sounds backwards, but I think it is one of the truest rules of life. Tied to that, it is hugely valuable to spend time around people who have already walked the road. Not someone a year or two ahead of you, but someone 10 or 20 years down the path. Someone standing where you want to be, at your point B, or even your point C. And here is a subtle thing. Learn not only from the people who succeeded, but from the people whose whole journey forged real knowledge. The ones who acted, who got it wrong, who lost and earned and lost again. Of course, there is always one ground rule. Never blindly believe anyone. Never take a piece of information at face value, no matter how authoritative the person seems, no matter how impressive they are. Always run everything through your own filter. Try it on and keep only the parts that fit you, based on your own experience and your own gut. I promise you, if you make peace with that idea, uncomfortable as it is, it will hand you an enormous advantage in life, in business, in anything you choose to do. All right, let us keep moving. The second thing worth building before 30 is a kind of freedom of movement. Let me unpack that because it runs deeper than it sounds. I will start with a number that surprised me when I first ran into it. Research suggests that a huge share of people never travel beyond the borders of their own country in their entire lives. And here is the bigger one. Roughly 70 out of every 100 people spend their whole lives in the place where they were born. They walk the same streets for years, which means they see the same faces, hear the same conversations, breathe the same culture. Their world is fully furnished and sealed, and that becomes their entire reality. Their picture of how the world works, call it that. And what you end up with is a closed loop. The kind most people quietly long to escape, but as you already know, escaping gets harder with every passing year. Let me ask you to picture something with me. If your whole life is framed up like that, set neatly inside one fixed border, do you think there is much room left in it for ideas, for creativity, for dreams, for anything new? Honestly, I doubt it, because it all sits inside walls that feel permanent and unbreakable. So a fair question follows. What do you actually do to keep from getting stuck in place, to keep growing, to keep stretching your thinking, to really see how layered and varied this world is? Here's what I think. In today's world, if you want to widen your horizons and you have no clue where to begin or how to even approach it, go and learn an online skill. It could be something on the side, an extra stream of work, or it could be the online version of whatever you already do for a living. Today, there is quite literally every possible avenue for working from anywhere on the planet. The demand for remote workers and freelancers grows by the day. Take my own team as an example. We have people scattered across completely different corners of the world. They speak different languages, live in different countries, sit in different time zones. And that gives a huge number of people freedom of action and freedom of movement. A real sense that their life, in some genuine way, belongs to them. That matters to me personally too. When I talk with people, I want to know they actually enjoy their work, that they feel some real spark toward it, instead of trudging along on autopilot out of pure inertia. And the modern career ladder is set up generously, if I can put it that way. There are thousands of these openings, maybe tens of thousands. Many of them require no college degree, no rare superpower that takes years to acquire. You can take an online course, learn the basics in a few months, and start. Obviously, you will not be raking in huge sums right away. You will be building experience, slowly raising your rate. But you will find an entirely new branch of life you never knew was there. The biggest thing, I think, is just realizing that this is real, and then taking the first few steps in that direction. Do it, and you will not only become freer and widen your circle, you will gain actual access to new markets, to projects beyond your own backyard, to the chance to earn in different currencies, whichever ones interest you. And keep this in mind, while you do not yet have the weight of obligations pressing down on you, this is exactly the window you have to use to invest in your own mobility. Let me come at it from another angle. Suppose your profession really does not allow for remote work. No online component, no flexibility in where you sit. Fine. Then here is the important idea to grasp. Mobility still has to exist somewhere in your life. It is vital to travel, to go places, because it grows you. It gives you a wider visual library. It gives you energy. I came across an idea once that hit me hard. A person set themselves a single rule. Every month, leave for somewhere new. Just a few days, every single month, off to a place they had never been. And apparently, it becomes addictive. And the edge it hands you later in life is almost impossible to put into words. I know a huge number of people who do a smaller version of this. Every weekend, they take off to a new town somewhere across the country. And there are countless towns to see, some tiny, some a little bigger. They have kept it up for years. Naturally, it opens a picture you simply could not see before. It lets you understand how the world is actually built, lets you start understanding people and cultures more deeply. And here's the thing. If you do anything at all that involves creating something for this world, understanding people and culture is the single most important ingredient there is. So you start seeing the bigger picture. You start spotting trends, spotting problems, which matters enormously, and seeing how the present moment is actually wired together. There is one more piece to this. Travel, at the most basic level, recharges you. If you love discovering new places, if it matters to you, if you feel a surge of strength from it, then chances are good that after a trip, you come back to your work carrying new ideas and more inspiration. And that, inevitably, pulls you toward growth and forward motion. So that is the second one. Build your mobility now, while it is cheap and easy to build. Now let us keep going, because the next thing I think is worth investing in before 30 might be the deepest one on the whole list. People. This is the foundation under everything, the single most important piece. Let me paint a picture. Imagine you have set yourself some enormous, audacious goal. Pull one out of thin air. Say you decided to climb Mount Everest. Obviously, you are not heading up a mountain like that alone. It is physically impossible. You need a team. You need people you can lean on, people you can, quite literally, trust with your life. Now follow the analogy with me, because we hand our lives to our circle of friends in exactly the same way, just more quietly. So here is the question. Who would you actually take with you up the mountain? The old classmate who is still hanging around mostly out of habit? The one who has been drifting alongside you since school? The guy you grab a beer with every Friday? Even though, if we are honest, the two of you ran out of things to actually talk about a long, long time ago? Or maybe some other buddy who showed up later, but who never stops complaining, who finds everything wrong. The country is wrong. The opportunities are wrong. And yet, if you break it down to the molecules, you realize he does absolutely nothing to change his own world. I think it is obvious to everyone here that you are not climbing a mountain with people like that. Not up where it is 40 below, where there are ice storms, where the oxygen runs thin, where every step could genuinely be your last because you are 8,000 meters up and the risks are enormous. And yet, when we talk about real life, about what is happening to us right here and right now, it is the exact same situation. Because we hand our lives to ourselves and to the people standing next to us. And for some reason, we get careless about it. And we walk through life shoulder to shoulder with the very people we would never rope ourselves to on a mountain. Why? Is it because we secretly feel our ordinary life is somehow less important than a summit attempt? It is not. So I think it is genuinely important to look honestly, directly, at your own surroundings and answer one question. Who is actually next to you? Are they people you trust? People you walk away from wanting to go build something? People who leave you with energy? People whose company makes ideas spark in your head? Or are they the ones who turn every meetup into a championship of complaining? The ones you leave thinking, life is genuinely garbage. And yeah, I agree. Everyone who is young right now is sitting on a genuinely important window of time. The time to chase the kinds of pretty pictures you used to see in magazines. The things, let us be honest, most people dreamed about and still dream about. Buying nice cars, living in great apartments, traveling the world, marrying that one person who is sharp and kind and interesting. Living well, in other words, the way you always imagined. And yet, most people, the great majority, end up pouring all of their energy into completely the wrong places. So, as I see it, it is hugely important not to be afraid to cut away your old environment when the moment calls for it. And not to be cheap about the things that grow you. Events, masterminds, conferences, forums, professional communities. All of that can genuinely move the needle for you. Let us go to the fourth thing worth investing in before 30. Call it buying yourself some safety. And I am not really talking about physical safety here, though partly that too. Here's the part that should make you sit up. Research suggests that the average person who falls into a real debt hole spends somewhere around 2.5 years climbing back out of it. Just sit with that for a second. And that is the average. Plenty of people take far longer. Now picture what falling into debt actually looks like day to day. It is constant stress. It is the phone ringing with collection calls, sleepless nights, money owed to people close to you, which naturally drags in arguments and broken relationships, loans at brutal interest rates, and in the end, it can lead straight to bankruptcy. A huge number of people, early in their journey, when they are still young, sin in exactly this way. They climb into debt and quietly wreck their own lives. Because rebuilding your self-confidence and your trust in yourself after a collapse like that is extraordinarily hard. And here is the worst part. A chain reaction tends to kick in. Like a hamster on a wheel, you go from one hole to the next, and a real vicious circle can take hold. This is a serious thing. For me personally, debt is basically taboo, a dead end. There are exceptions, sure, and I will set those aside in parentheses. But if a person is forced to take out loans, what they actually need is not a loan, and not to scramble for cash here and there. What they need is to completely change their model of living. It means they miscalculated somewhere. It means they are living beyond their means. And in most cases, that ends very badly. Let me give you my own experience. I took out a loan exactly once in my life, back around 2014. I desperately wanted to buy a car. It was a dream I had carried since childhood, so I took out an auto loan. The payment, I remember it like it was yesterday, was somewhere around $600 a month. And I was, honestly, full of energy about it. I was young. I loved it. I loved that car. And here's the thing. I understood the absolute worst case. Every month when the payment came due, I hustled. I ran around. I scrambled. I worked like crazy, and I actually loved that part. But I knew that the very worst thing that could happen was simply this. I would have to sell the car to pay off the loan. That is it. There was no scenario where everything blew up and I was left with no asset, no property, and a mountain of debt. So it was safe and it drove me forward. But a lot of people operate completely differently and steer themselves straight into disaster. In general, you have to understand that financial instruments of every kind, loans, mortgages, credit cards, all of it are powerful tools, but only in skilled hands. They were built for a population that wants to grab some quick cash, and the bank earns on that. But the way I see it, those instruments should really be used by people who understand how financial markets work, how money actually behaves, and how to pull an advantage out of it. For example, say you have liquid cash and you can put it into assets, into ventures, and earn a return. Meanwhile, you have a credit card that gives you 50 to 100 days interest-free. So you pay with the card and keep your own money working somewhere else. And at the end of the period, you close the balance. You essentially used 2 or 3 months of free money. That is great. A mortgage can be the same. You have cash you want to deploy, you are confident you will earn a return higher than the mortgage rate. So you turn that over and use it to your benefit. You do not just acquire an asset, you earn on top of it. But the moment you do any of this just because you really, really want to, without understanding how you will close it out, how you will make the payments, how much you will owe, it turns into a weight around your neck, and that is it. That is the final, very dangerous point, and it is exactly what you have to steer clear of. As a rule, the people who use these tools well also have, alongside their plan, a set of backup options, a safety cushion. So the first thing to start with here, to feel confident and avoid getting wedged into a corner, is to build yourself at least a minimal financial cushion, a margin of safety covering 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. You do not need to hoard. You do not need to live half-starved just to stack up savings. But little by little by little, you build it. Because you never know how life will turn, where it will lead you, what will happen to your job in this constantly shifting world, or what you will suddenly need money for. That way, if a critical situation hits, a genuinely hard moment, you do not end up stuck at the bottom. You always have a plan B in the form of that cushion. And I am certain that for a lot of people, down the road, this saves an enormous amount of nerves and energy. The kind better spent on growth and on building something instead of clawing your way off the floor. Because when you are clawing off the floor, that is a fight for survival, not a leap upward. On top of that, when you actually have a choice, when there is some cushion under you, it opens more doors. You go to work not only because you have to put bread on the table and decide this very second, but because you can afford to choose. You can wait a month, 2 months, and say, you know what? I will hold out for the option that is truly mine, the one I like far more, the one that actually fits me. That is roughly how I see it. Now, let us move on. The fifth investment before 30 is health. It sounds simple, almost cliche, but there is so much packed inside it. I'm about to sound a bit like the grandfather at the family dinner, raising a glass and announcing that the most important thing in life is your health. And honestly, I agree with that inner grandfather 100%. My only regret is that I started understanding it pretty late. Definitely not at 20, more like closer to 30. So those of you under 30 right now have a real head start if you take in what I'm about to say. Let me give you a picture of my childhood, because we entertained ourselves rather brutally. In elementary school, we all started smoking together, and we thought it was a riot. I think I could put away half a pack of cigarettes a day back in grade school without blinking. And that went on for a very long time, right up to college. Then, a couple of years later, my friends and I were figuring out how to buy beer at the store, and they started selling it to us. Times were what they were. We drank our beer, we tried the hard stuff. None of that is exactly breaking news, I'm sure. Then came my youth when I started working. I worked around the clock. That is how I pumped myself up. I drank 3 or 4 liters of coffee a day, a mug practically welded to my hand at all times. Then I would come home wired, unable to sleep, of course. And what helped me unwind? Right, beer. The classic loop. The amazing part is that I could go nights without sleep, work 24-hour stretches, drink constantly, then wake up the next morning feeling somehow totally fine. Off I went to work, then out to blow off steam, and around again. Most people that age will feel exactly the same, totally fine, because your body is young and strong. Everything is working. Now here's how it goes today. You drink a single glass of wine, maybe even a good one, and the next day is gone, wiped off the calendar. You feel, putting it gently, not at your best. You feel rough. Why? Plenty of reasons. We will get to them. And this is despite the fact that now I have monthly checkups, a personal doctor, massages, sport, stretching, and on and on. That is just the baseline I keep now. Why? Because the whole thing works like an internal energy account, a meter, if you like. In your youth, you are running a fat surplus. You are deep in the black. You feel almost immortal. You can skip sleep, pour energy drinks into yourself, drink, smoke nonstop. You notice nothing because your body is young and tough and absorbs all of it. A gold card with no limit. And you swipe that card everywhere. Sleepless night? Swipe. Beer? Swipe. 5 hookahs in a row? Swipe. And everything is fine. It feels like it will always be this way. Then you hit roughly 30. Give or take a couple of years for everyone, and suddenly you tap the card somewhere, swipe, and it gets declined. Swipe, declined. A notice lands on your phone. Pay your outstanding balance or your access will be cut off. And this is one push notification you cannot just swipe away and delete. You feel weakness, nervous breakdowns, burnout, problems with your skin, your teeth, your energy, your sleep, things you never once thought about, things that felt like they belonged to some other universe. You start to understand what your grandmother meant when she said she could not sleep at night. And at that point, you cannot just ignore it because your body reminds you, harshly, every single day, that the hour of reckoning has arrived, and now it is time to repay the debt at double the rate because the interest has been quietly piling up. So pay up. That is health on credit, and I am certain a lot of you have been spending it the same way I did. So this is exactly what you have to invest in while you are young, and ideally, you invest in it fully. The instant the chance shows up, buy yourself training, a gym membership, massages, play some safe sport, get moving, tennis, ride a bike, run carefully. Plenty of people already train, I know. So the important thing is, first, to minimize the harmful stuff I described, and second, the moment you can, to start as early as possible investing in yoga, in stretching, in vitamins, in checkups, in massages, in everything that helps your body keep going and actually develop instead of breaking down. And yes, some of what people now call biohacking belongs here too. Working on the quality of your sleep, on your nutrition, the foundation of foundations, the base that has, frankly, been chewed over 1,000 times by now. Everyone knows it, and naturally, most people still do not do it. Let us keep going. There is another item that I truly believe can shift the whole direction of your life for the better, and that is buying yourself time to reflect. I am sure every one of you has had this exact moment. You have been at work all day, and toward evening you think, I need to step out, clear my head, actually make sense of how today went. You have already stood up, half gathered your things, one foot out the door, and bang, a brand new work task drops into the chat. Urgent, of course. Then you remember something else you forgot to do. Then you spot one more thing. And just like that, your day is gone. You fall straight back into the work, answering, finishing, wrapping up. It was supposed to be 5 minutes. What is there to handle, really? And then you lift your eyes, and it is already dark outside. The streets are empty, time for bed. Because tomorrow morning is wall-to-wall meetings again. So you tell yourself, fine, okay, I will at least take 5 minutes before sleep to think about life, meditate a little, take a small pause. And bang, you did not even notice, and an hour and a half has vanished into scrolling. Instead of doing something useful, reflecting, resting, recovering, you just dissolve into the internet and pour your time down the drain. Naturally, after that, you fall asleep late, wake up wrecked, and it goes on like this day after day after day. And that time for yourself, for making sense of things, for reflection, keeps getting pushed further and further back, as if it were second or even third priority. When in reality, if you stop and think, that ability to pause, exhale, and simply hear yourself is one of the most profitable investments you will ever make. You make it in your youth, again, because that is when the habit forms, and you want to arrive at it as early as possible. More than that, it is precisely in those pauses, those moments when you switch off the outside noise and sit alone with yourself and start to listen, that the real ideas are born. The truly great solutions, the ones you cannot copy off anyone else, because it is not just an idea, it is an idea filtered through you. And in those pauses, in that moment of reflection, everything becomes clear. Where I actually am, what stage of life I am at, where I truly want to go, and what I want to see next. Let us be honest, at 20, you do not really think about any of that. There is a current, you are floating in it, and it carries you along on its own. But then time passes, and it passes fast, which is exactly where I started today. By 30, bang, an internal crisis catches up with you. Some people start dropping everything, switching careers, starting from zero, total chaos. Others simply wreck their lives and get stuck in the hole for a long time. A third group just loses themselves for a long stretch, wandering around searching. None of that is as constructive as it could have been. And if by that point, by that first real crisis, you have not learned to track this, to dive into yourself, to hear yourself, to reflect, to honestly sort out what genuinely matters to you, then one fine day, you can wake up and realize that all this time, you were moving in the wrong direction entirely. You grinded for 10 years, and then at 30, you sit down and ask, why am I even doing this? Where do I actually need to go? And after that, you have to reassemble yourself from scratch. Find yourself again. Build a new life from nothing. And as I already said, at 30, you are far less flexible than you were at 20. I am sure that at 40, I will say the same about 30. And yet, when you get down to it, all of this starts with one tiny habit. You could have simply stopped for 10 minutes a day, gone for an hour-long walk, let yourself think, and step by step become, as worn out as the phrase sounds, the best version of yourself, as long as you track it in time and genuinely listen to yourself. So reflection is not some piece of mysticism or the latest trendy hobby. It is a basic skill of an adult human being, especially in the modern world, where the information noise is simply insane and everything is pulling you away from your own life. For some people, an honest session with a therapist will help. For others, yoga. For others, a walk in the park with no phone, just switched off. For others, keeping a personal journal. Everyone has their own way. The main thing, I think, is just to realize that you absolutely must invest your time and attention into this, because you are the top priority of your own life, and shoving yourself into the back drawer is simply not allowed. Before we wrap, let me ask you something, and I genuinely read the comments on this one. Think back over everything we have covered so far. What is the single piece of advice you would give your 20-year-old self if you could sit them down today? Drop it in the comments. I ask because the answers people leave on this question are some of the most honest and useful things on the whole channel. And somebody scrolling by might read yours at the exact moment they needed it. So do not keep it to yourself. That brings us to the last one, the 7th investment before 30, and it is buying time. In your youth, it feels like a whole life stretches ahead of you, oceans of time. You can fit everything in. But as you get older, and I can say this firsthand now, you suddenly realize that time moves catastrophically fast, while the plans, the goals, the ideas only pile up higher. There are more of them, not fewer, and the time keeps draining away. For a very long time, like a lot of people, I tried to hold absolutely everything in my life under my own control. Every work task, dozens of projects, every little obligation, on and on and on. I always had this sense that if I let go of any of it, the whole thing would fall apart. And the shift that changed everything was simple. I learned to ask one question. Does this actually build the future I want? Everything that does not work toward growth can and should be delegated or simply dropped altogether. A lot of people feel like that is impossible, that it is all critical. I felt that way too at the time. but you can let it go. Here is my real point. Under no circumstances should you economize on the things that genuinely unload you. And I do not just mean people in a team. This applies to absolutely everything. The team, daily life, organizational work, even basically simple services. You know, I still know an enormous number of people who, and I will not even get into the ones running free AI subscriptions just to save $20 a month, will instead spend time every single day hunting down a movie or a series or an audiobook on some sketchy pirate site when they could pay a few dollars a month and just have everything at their fingertips in a clean, convenient format. And this seemingly trivial thing, you think you are saving money, you feel clever, and in reality, a mountain of time and resources just drains away on garbage. On top of that, take the artificial intelligence example. You could have spent that $20 a month and done a job in an hour that you will otherwise grind through over 5 or 7 days yourself. So it feels hugely important to me to free up time so you can do the things that actually matter and actually shape your future. Everything else should be automated, delegated, handed off, and so on. Life is simply too short to dissolve into routine. Let us bring it all together. So, that is the list of what I truly believe is worth investing in roughly from 20 to 30 to build yourself a powerful foundation for your entire life. The right to make mistakes, freedom of movement, a strong circle of people, a safety cushion, health, contact with yourself, and freeing up your own precious time. Each of these, in my view, is not some box-checking piece of advice. Each one is a real investment in your future. And here is the genuinely interesting part. Everything most valuable in life turns out to be the simplest stuff. So you look at it sometimes and think, this is all so obvious, so basic. And then you stop and think, no, actually, this is the foundation. It is the thing I know, but do not do. So the sooner you start investing in yourself, the calmer, the more confident, the freer you will feel just a few years from now. None of it is fast, but life too is fairly long. And even if it feels in the moment like you are doing something wrong, like the situation is already past saving, the truth is that it is not. You just have to take certain steps, one after another. Keep in mind that everything we talked about today is shared as informational content drawn from my own experience, and it is not a substitute for personalized professional advice. Take what fits, run it through your own filter, and leave the rest behind. If any of this was useful to you, do me a favor and tap that like, and tell me in the comments what stuck with you and what you would add. Maybe I missed something, and you will point me toward an interesting thought or a topic for a future episode. I read every comment, and every like genuinely lands right in the heart. As for the dislikes, well, those go in a separate little notebook. And if you have not yet, hit subscribe and join the push to 1,000 subscribers here on Brad Walker. Beyond that, that is everything. See you in the next one. Take care.